Welcome to Movers and Shakers on JTV. Earlier, I interviewed Marks OBE. Laura is well known for setting up Mitzvah Day in 2005, which then became a charity in 2008. The annual global event brings together different people and different faiths working together in one community. Laura was subsequently awarded an OBE in the Queen's New Year's Honours List for her work building interfaith relationships. Alongside this, Laura held the position of Senior Vice President of the Board of Deputies until May 2015 and is the Vice Chair of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust. So can I start by asking you, Mitzvah Day, where did the idea come from?
Well, the idea, like so many good ideas in the British Jewish community, came from America. And the idea, we lived in America for 3 years when my children were little, and our synagogue had a Mitzvah Day. And I thought, this is a fantastic idea. You know, very often people set up charities because something awful happens to them. You know, you've got a kid who has cancer or something horrible happens and you think, I'm going to do something about it. And I was lucky, and nothing bad like that ever happened to me. And I was looking for an idea, and the beauty of Mitzvah Day is it allows anybody to do anything that they're passionate about. So you can support cancer charities, you can support homeless charities, you can support charities for older people. The world is your oyster, so long as you do something hands-on. So I saw the idea in America, and I thought, this will be fantastic for Britain because it's so positive. It's what I call proudly in-your-face Jewish. And over time, of course, we started to invite people from other faith groups to come and do it with us. But Mitzvah Day is proudly, fundamentally a Jewish operation.
And now it's become a global phenomenon. People all over the world are taking part. How did it get such a global reach?
It really works because people like the idea. You know, my background's in marketing and advertising, and I firmly believe that you can't get people to do something unless they want to do it. So Mitzvah Day appeals to people because people want to do things for charity and don't know how. They want to engage with new charities that they don't know. They want to do things together. And now they want to do things with people of other faiths. And what Mitzvah Day does is it gives you the structure to do that. So the idea works, and then, as with so many things, it works by networking. You know, it's Jewish, so I know somebody and they know somebody, and you know the right person. And the key is always finding the right person in the organization who's going to run a Mitzvah Day to do it. So it might be the president of the shul, might be the rabbi, but usually is what I call the middle-aged macher, which is someone like me. So it's somebody who knows everyone in the community, who knows the right buttons to press, who knows what that community cares about. And they will say, come on guys, let's go and do this thing called Mitzvah Day.
And you touch on, and what Mitzvah Day kind of prides itself on is the interfaith relations. Can you share more about your work with interfaith relations?
Yeah. Most of Mitzvah Day's work is actually Jewish communities doing things for charities. Jewish charities or charities in the wider world. And I really firmly believe that as a Jewish community, we're stronger if we face out. There's a lot of Jewish work faces in, which is fantastic work and necessary, but my passion is facing out. And so we started off doing things for non-Jewish charities or even for other faith charities, but I very soon realized that you could use social action as a platform for interfaith work. And the thing about social action is that every faith community is commanded to do it. So Jews are commanded to do it, Christians are, everyone is commanded to do it. It's not like music or sport or drama, all of which form, you know, platforms for interfaith stuff. The thing about social action is it's integral. And therefore, if I go to a church or to a mosque to explain Mitzvah Day, I don't have to explain very much, they get it. And they've got the same thing too. Their people want to do good works, they want to do stuff with charities, they want to meet other people. So it's a very easy vehicle. Now, having said that, of course, interfaith work is not easy, but I think that doing social action is as easy as it gets in the interfaith arena.
So perhaps those that are drawn to interfaith activity are maybe the enlightened people in their respective communities. Mm-hmm. So how do you draw that to the wider community?
So I have this concept which I call low-hanging fruit. And the idea is you always start off with people who are within reach, and worry about the rest later on, and there'll be a knock-on effect. So when I started Mitzvah Day, in the Jewish community, never mind the non-Jewish community, I started with the low-hanging fruit. I wanted it to be cross-communal. I had to bring in people from across the community, so I went to people who I knew would be interested. And then over time, the more difficult fruit comes into your reach. And with the interfaith work, it's exactly the same. It's a matter of knowing. It's more difficult to know, but it's a matter of knowing who those people are, and bringing them in. And once you brought in the low-hanging fruit, then other people will come too. And I've got this new project, which is called Nisa Nashim, which is a Jewish-Muslim network, women. And Nisa Nashim means women in Arabic and Hebrew. And the idea is to show how similar we are rather than how different we are. And exactly the same is true. In fact, people say to me, yes, but are you reaching the difficult to reach Muslims? And the answer is, no, I'm not. Who is? Actually, my job is to make some relationship between the Jewish and Muslim communities that's more than superficial. So our main aim is to get friendships built between Jewish and Muslim women, because there are remarkably few. And the two communities both live in their own little world, particularly the Jewish community. We're very geographically limited. We tend to send our kids to Jewish schools. They go to Jewish youth movements. The parents don't meet each other. So where do you meet Muslim women? You know, most Jewish women don't know any Muslim women, and they certainly don't have them in their circle of friends. And I realized that the low-hanging fruit's not that easy to reach. So we start there, and then you get more involved.
And if we continue on the subject of women, you set up Women in Jewish Leadership. Now, perhaps an interesting question to ask. Do you think that there is this glass ceiling that people talk about? Or do you think that women just are beholden to societal pressures, and that's why there's not more women in Jewish leadership?
Okay, so it's a Jewish problem. Okay, don't be fooled into thinking this is just a society problem. In fact, earlier on, you and I were talking about the BBC, and we were talking about how gender equal it is, because it has a policy of being inclusive and diverse. And lots of civil service or type organisations or big organisations have policies where they have taken the law on board, because the law in 2010 was very strict actually, and they've made a point of making sure that they are inclusive and diverse. Now, if you compare Jewish organisations to the wider world, you'll find there is a Jewish issue here. There's no question there's a Jewish issue. Now, how much of it's because the organisations deliberately keep out the women? How much is because the women don't want to get involved? How much is because of things like the massive pressure of running a Jewish family as well as a Jewish career? Cultural issues, religious issues, all sorts of other issues which we identified in the commission, they all play a factor and they all play a part. But what you end up with is a community which is largely run at the top level by the men. And there's an enormous amount of work to do to change that. And why does it matter? People say, well, so what? You know, the women, leave the men to it, and they can go off and get jobs in the wider world. And what does it matter? And the answer is it matters because of role modelling. And it matters because the next generation need to believe that women have a role running our community too. We're too small of a community to leave half the people out. And my son has got to see it as much as my daughter.
Well, I think if there's any role model, then it would be you. And because of your amazing work, especially your interfaith work, you were awarded an OBE. So you went to Buckingham Palace. How was that?
It was lovely. It was lovely. My daughter was on her gap year in Israel, and I just decided she had to come. So EasyJet got her back and to Luton at 9 o'clock the night before or whatever it was, and the five of us went. And it's a very special day. It's a very special thing, and it's very. I think it's very important that we recognise specific things. So mine was for interfaith work. And I think it's very important that we recognise how important the interfaith dynamic is now. And it always has been, but it's more important now than it's ever been. And I'm terribly aware that, as I say, we're a very introspective community, and yet we're very anxious as a community about the whole interfaith scenario, the international situation, as well we might be. And people say, well, does it make any difference? Laura, does it really make any difference? You know, it's all very well making a nice sort of network of women or whatever, but what difference does it make? And the answer is, there's two answers. One of them is, I genuinely believe that if you start with key people, it will filter down. And the second thing is, I believe you can't do nothing. So I don't know where the world's going. I don't know what difference it'll make, but I do know it's my job to try.
Well, that was fantastic, and thank you very much for coming to join us today. Thank you.